BioShock 2 is a game that has some uneven footing within the series. Some would call it a masterpiece, others forgettable, but for me it's an excellent game with impossible shoes to fill. BioShock 1 was so good that this game would have had to pull a rabbit out of a hat to stand out. And while I do think it makes small improvements to the formula, dual wielding both your weapon and plasmid at the same time probably being the biggest, ultimately it doesn't stand out enough from under the shadow of its predecessor to be seen as anything more than a slightly less memorable derivative. But that's not to say that it isn't interesting or well crafted. So today I thought we'd take a look at it, specifically in its ending, and see what implications it had for the series, and cover the multiple avenues that you can take depending on your playstyle.
If Utopia is not a place, but a people, then we must choose carefully, for the world is about to change. And in our story, Rapture was just the beginning.
So to start with a bit of an overview for the game, we play as a character named Subject Delta, a former deep-sea diver who found Rapture by chance and paid dearly for the discovery. He was arrested by Ryan for being a supposed spy and then sent to Persephone, where he would eventually find his way into the Protector program to become a big daddy in a new line of the behemoths called the Alpha series. The series being notable because they featured a new big daddy little sister bond, wherein the two would become inseparable to make the daddies more protective of their charge. Our protagonist being the first success in this process, and would be bonded with a little sister named Eleanor Lamb. Eleanor being the daughter to a collectivist psychiatrist who'd also gotten on the wrong side of Ryan. Her mother, Sophia Lamb, would be jailed much like Delta, and when she would eventually take over the prison by converting the staff and inmates into her followers, one of her first acts would be the retrieval of her daughter. Sophia tracking down Eleanor and setting up a trap for Delta wherein she would kill the metal daddy and take her daughter to try and cure her of her little sister mental conditioning. Sophia going on to essentially inherit the embers of Rapture once both Frank Fontaine and Andrew Ryan met their end at the hands of Jack in the first game. The psychiatrist attempting to create a utopia through Adam, where she would remove a person of their self-awareness and, in theory, make them live for the collective. Her first attempt being a failure in Gilbert Alexander, but she wanted to try again with Eleanor. Eleanor, on the other hand, wasn't exactly interested, so she would reach out for help, finding a way to revive Subject Delta. Delta's rebirth would lead to him trouncing all over the underwater city in search of Eleanor, who was deep within the heart of Persephone. The Big Daddy meeting multiple people who play into the story with both ties to Lamb and often ties to Delta. Grace Holloway, one of Sophia's faithful, who was watching over Eleanor while her mother was incarcerated. Stanley Poole, a false follower of Lamb who'd actually turned her over to Ryan, then abducted and sold Eleanor, and even had a hand in Delta's imprisonment. And finally, Gilbert Alexander, the man who inherited the Protector program after Su Chong. He turned us into a Big Daddy, Eleanor into a little sister, and eventually was converted into Sophia Lamb's flock. These people are important, not only in the context of the narrative, but also in the context of the ending. With each of them, you'll have the option to kill or spare them in a decision that will have slight tweaks on the game's conclusion. These decisions, in conjunction with how you interact with the little sisters you meet along the journey, will dictate some dialogue from Eleanor and also the fate of Sophia. For example, if you kill one or more of these people and also harvest one or more of the little sisters, you'll get the evil ending.
You taught me that innocence is chrysalis, a phase designed to end. Only when we are free from it do we know ourselves. You showed me that my survival, my joy, are all that matter. I indulge. Nothing else exists.
An ending where Eleanor learns a pretty bleak lesson from the events of the game and also kills her mother. However, if you were to spare all three of these people, then the events would play out differently, where Eleanor would save Sophia and share some different dialogue. There are 4 variants to this, each determined by the people you save and the little sisters harvested. Sophia's death being determined by how you interact with the 3 NPCs, while the little sister choices only play into the dialogue. But that's only the first ending, because after Sophia's fate is decided, you'll have a secondary ending which is much more heavily related to your decisions with the sisters. This can also play out in one of 4 ways, sort of. If you split the decision and harvest some little sisters, but also save some, then you'll be given an option on the final screen to either save or sacrifice yourself. If you choose sacrifice, then you'll get a bleak ending where Eleanor won't harvest your atom and will essentially become her own person, setting her free in a world that's not her own to figure it out by herself. If you choose to save yourself though, you'll get a much less chipper Eleanor. She'll harvest your atom and essentially become evil, spouting out ominous rhetoric as corpses from Rapture float to the surface.
There is no name for what I am, but the world is about to change, and with your help, they will never see me coming.
This is also the ending you'll get if you harvest all the little sisters, with the exception that you won't have the choice to sacrifice or save yourself. Then, if you save all the little sisters, you'll get the good ending, in which your atom is absorbed and Eleanor is surrounded by the girls that you've saved on your journey. This one kind of mirroring Jack's conclusion in the first game, where it's implied that Eleanor will sort of adopt these girls, and you'll be there as an angel on her shoulder to help her out. In total, there are 8 endings. Sophia's just kind of bringing a conclusion to her story because we don't have a boss fight with her, and Eleanor is determining the future in terms of how she'll impact the world. Obviously, I think the good ending is the most likely canonical if they were ever going to use these characters again, which is next to impossible because Infinite kind of ruined continuity for the series with the whole multiverse thing, but yeah. The takeaway here should be that Rapture as we know it is in absolute ruination. So if we ever do see the long-fabled BioShock 4 that was rumored in development since 2019, it's gonna have to take place in another new location, take us back to a time before the events of the second game, or I suppose a new expedition could find their way to the city or something like that. However, if they did, Adam's sickness has seemingly been cured by Bridget Tenenbaum, as we can see by the ending of the Minerva's Den DLC. To give another brief overview, we play as another Alpha series named Subject Sigma, who's been brought out of cold storage by Dr. Tenenbaum. He then assists her in retrieving an AI supercomputer known as the Thinker from Rapture's central computing, finding out that he was the one who made the machine to begin with. The Thinker using his own personality to coerce Sigma into assisting Tenenbaum, saving the machine, and escaping the city. Lots of details I'm blowing through, but the main takeaway here in terms of the world of BioShock really isn't the story of Sigma, it's actually the discoveries of Tenenbaum. Once the pair get back to the surface, she seemingly uses the Thinker's vast computational systems to create a cure for atom sickness, as is hinted through an audio log found in the DLC.
With one final dose, we return the patient to his former self. It is only theory. The number of potential bonding sites for even a single test is innumerable, and I cannot calculate alone. But I have heard of an adding machine at the heart of this city, beyond the capability of any device the world has known. Perhaps, if I could harness its power.
As for how we know she was successful in these endeavors, we see the fruits of her labor in the final cutscene of the game. Porter monologuing as we see him disregard his Big Daddy uniform, suggesting that she's managed to cure him of atom sickness and bring him back to his senses. An occurrence that now means that every splicer under the waves can be cured of Adam's debilitating grip on their lives. So even if we went back to Rapture, splicers shouldn't be that much of a problem because we could heal them of their addictions. Basically, just further solidifying that we've reached the crescendo of Andrew Ryan City and have little left to actually do. Of course, I could be wrong. Maybe I'm inaccurately interpreting the ending of Minerva's Den, but I don't think so. In all likelihood, if we do eventually get BioShock 4, it's probably either going to be an alternate universe Rapture or perhaps a completely new city like Columbia. Personally, I'd be fine with the hook of these games just becoming outlandish cities that have detailed backstories about why they developed in the way that they did, but I think Rapture is such an iconic location that they'll want to market off that, considering the series has been dormant for such a long time. I just hope that they play away from the whole multiverse aspect though. In my opinion, it cheapens the story when you have innumerable versions of a character, so even if you kill someone like Ryan, he survived in some universe, so he can never truly be gone. Anyway, that's about all I've got to say for the ending of this game. I thank you all for watching, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you all in the next one.